Welcome back to Yoshi Entertainment, everybody. So just recently, Quiet on Set has been out. People have been watching it. They have been talking about and putting their words in on the atrocities that these young Nickelodeon stars have had to go through. Now, in a nutshell, there have been all kind of things happening down at those sets with Nickelodeon that range from racism against the black actors and actresses, bullying, a hostile work environment, an unsafe work environment, which is even worse when a child is involved. There was also verbal and emotional abuse. Allegedly, even some of the women who were writers went through stuff that they should not have had to go through. It was a lot, and it was good that these people were able to put their story out there. They had a platform to tell what happened to them because nobody should have to sit on the trauma and the pain that was inflicted by somebody who was supposed to keep them safe while they were working down at these TV and movie sets. Now, like I said, Drake Bell sat down and talked about what happened to him, the things that he was put through. Allegedly, there were rumors that there were like three main individuals who were taken advantage of down there at Nickelodeon who hadn't said anything yet. And finally, he revealed himself to be one of those main people. Now, we talked about Brian Peck in the previous video that I made about this. We talked about how he went to prison for less than a year and a half for crimes committed against children. Y'all know what those kind of crimes are. Unfortunately, we can't even say it here on YouTube. We can't even talk about it. The censorship is out of pocket, if you will, but anyways, the summary once again on all of that is after less than a year and a half, the man went right back to doing, after he got out of prison, to doing the same things to them kids down there at Nickelodeon. Drake Bell talked about this. He talked about the stuff that happened to him, his experiences, how he didn't want to say anything. He didn't feel safe to open up because he knew one of the first questions they were going to ask him, okay, why do you not want to be around Brian anymore? Why do you not want to go to his house? Because then he would have to explain everything, and he didn't know how that was going to turn out. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Our community, our society has built this culture that makes it unsafe for people to come out. It makes them feel like they will not be accepted, they will not be heard, and nothing will be done if they do. It makes them feel uncomfortable. And it makes them feel like they'll just mess everything up if they come forward about what happened to them concerning the horrible things that they were put through by these people. Like I said, it's unfortunate that our community and our society has caused this, has built this culture. Drake Bell talked about how this predator caught him off guard in his house and took advantage of him multiple times, and that it only got worse and worse and worse as time passed. Then he tried to figure out more ways to get him alone and isolated from his family. People were talking about how Drake Bell's dad was the only person who was trying to stop this from happening. He said that man felt something was off about Brian Peck and said, you know what, I don't want my son around him. I just don't want him around him. Brian Peck then proceeded to basically ice that man out, as they say. Allegedly, he got with Drake Bell's mother and convinced people that Drake Bell's father was not a good person to be watching over him, I guess, would be better with his mother. And they arranged all of this. And it's crazy when some person, some predator, who's clearly up there at the top, if you will, very privileged, very powerful, can go over the head of a parent, especially a father, and have stuff done to and with that father's child. That is absolutely wild that was even allowed to happen to Drake Bell to begin with. All Drake's mother clearly was concerned about was the moolah, the bread, the dough, the money, if you will. Because she didn't stop one time to think, there's something going on, clearly have some kind of intuition. Why does the father not want his son with the man? If anything, another man should be able to spot out another man. And that's exactly what his father did. And she also, like I said, went over his head and didn't do what was best for her son. I'm a firm believer in both parents need to be on the same page. I don't care if they're married or not. If one parent said, I don't want him going with this creepy sicko predator, then they both should have agreed, hey, we're not going to let him go. But like I said, she was so concerned with him being famous and money because of being attached to him being her son that she just let whatever fly. A lot of these parents down there, both some of these fathers and mothers, have screwed their kids over real bad, and it's real disgusting and it's real messed up. Nobody down there at Nickelodeon, along with any of these parents who are very raggedy and let their children go down there to be taken advantage of, can say they didn't see any red flags concerning this man. First of all, like I said, he'd been to prison before for the same things. He had a history, And also, some more background on this man that I just found out recently. So somebody got on Twitter and put this information out there. Allegedly, I'll say allegedly. This person, Brian Peck, was in contact with a man by the name of John Wayne Gacy, who was a serial deleter who unalived boys and men. Allegedly, he proudly showed people the letters that he received from that man, which he kept next to his bed. And he had a whole portrait that was signed by this man from this man. Y'all want to know some more information that's even more crazy? Because people didn't know who this man was, including myself, before this whole debacle, and I actually did research. Apparently, this man has had at least 33. I said at least, which, that's a mighty interesting number if you know Freemasonry and all that kind of stuff. 33 young men and boys deleted around the Chicago area, who he allegedly R-worded and tortured before deleting them. Was also given the name the Deleter Clown because of his public performances as a clown before the discovery of his crimes, which he could have very well have been using as a cover, if you will. And on top of all of that, allegedly, there could be 20 more victims whose bodies will never be found. Allegedly. This is the kind of person that Brian Peck was in communication with. We've talked about on this channel how bad communication can corrupt good mannerisms, but neither of those men were good. Both of them were awful, raggedy. One, of course, much worse than the other one. Although you can tell a lot about a person, where their mindset is, what kind of person they are, by who they associate themselves with, who they hang around, who they are in communication with. Birds of a feather flock together. He was doing some of the same things before unaliving those unfortunate victims as Brian Peck was doing to Drake Bell and God knows who else. Like I said, we live in a very sick world. Now, once again, we've got to talk about Dan Schneider and his crimes as well. First of all, it absolutely disgusted me. Let me just say this first. How he sat across from that man, that black man, and I'm going to point out that some more in a little bit. He sat across from that man and basically was the epitome of damage control, of not taking accountability for his actions, the pity party, really not being responsible for what he chose to do to those children, for what he chose to do down there at that set at Nickelodeon. He sat across from that man and sidestepped real accountability so hard, you would think he wasn't even apologizing or trying to apologize for hurting children. He made so many excuses. Like when he asked him, okay, well, there were some things that y'all put in there, those shows, like some very inappropriate insinuations, all kinds of just dumb stuff where like they're putting their mouths on tubes, like what happened to Alexa Nicholas. And we're going to talk about her some more. But she put her mouth on a tube because she was trying to get something out of the tube. And then it basically, like, whatever it was, ended up on the face of that other girl from Zoe 101. We all know what that's basically simulating. And for them to put that in a child show and to have children involved in that kind of stuff, that kind of sexual undertones, if you will, was just sick. And they were talking about how whenever they did these sick-minded, once again, and I put in quotation marks, jokes, because I don't think anything about that was funny or a joke, that Dan Schneider was one of the main people allegedly laughing on set. The guy, I guess his name is Boogie, that's the nickname they call him by, I guess, was sitting across from him and asked him, okay, so if at any point in time somebody was like, I don't feel comfortable with this is not a joke to me, I don't want to do this, then what would you say? And they were really talking like this was in real time, like this hadn't already taken place. He was talking about some, I just, scrapped the whole thing. We can start over. Like, I'm willing to, start everything over if they didn't want to do that, if they didn't want to write that, if they didn't want to act that. Once again, this has already happened. Your chance to say, if y'all uncomfortable, which I know he knew they were at that moment, it's already gone. So that means absolutely nothing to any of us. That's garbage, because you should have thought that whenever this first happened, not now when he's being held accountable for his actions, alleged actions, not now whenever his sins, if you will, have finally caught up with his raggedy behind. That man had the audacity to sit up there and do a fake cry and talk about how, he's so embarrassed by what happened. No, sir, your actions weren't embarrassing. They were illegal, and you need to be in jail. You need to be in prison. He was talking about how he wanted to apologize. No, sir, don't sit across from him and apologize. You didn't mess him over. Go and apologize to the people who you messed over. And an apology would be you being in prison serving time for what you did. Settlement money to the victims, to the people who had to live with and have to continue to live with what you allegedly did to them. That is an apology. Put your money where your mouth is and serve some time. Put yourself through some actual accountability before you say you apologize, because otherwise, once again, it means absolutely nothing. An apology after everybody has confronted you now means absolutely nothing. And as for this man, Mr. Boogie, I guess that's what his name is, like I said before, he really should be ashamed of himself, because how dare you sit down and have an interview with the alleged abuser? How dare you? You didn't think that was a complete slap in the face to the victims, to the people who he screwed over? Once again, how dare you? And also, I get really sick and tired of black people being the poster children, if you will, being the person who every single abuser runs to for a shoulder to cry on when they now have to be faced with the consequences of their predatory, disrespectful, and heinous actions. He ain't the first black person to do this, and I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, he won't be the last, although it's really angering and annoying and disrespectful, once again, to people who have been through this. Disrespectful in general, once again, to be the person who gives the predator, the person who didn't take accountability for how they hurt people, this platform to act like they're apologetic, they're sorry for what they did, to basically really not be sorry, to give what you call a not apology, and not actually be held accountable. Talk about how they feel so bad, and it's only because they got caught, not because they're actually sorry about the damage that they did, the people they hurt. It's because they got caught once again, and now they have to face the music. And it makes him look even more stupid because allegedly Dan Schneider and his wife are both racist people. And I brought his wife up because I just found out recently, allegedly, his wife is the same lady who tried to basically embarrass Patti LaBelle on her little raggedy cooking show. Y'all remember when she was like, "Oh no, you can't eat that, Patti." I mean, she really tried it. And like I said, allegedly, both of them are like this. Dan Schneider does not have kind thoughts towards black people. I said before, earlier in this video, some of the black actors sat down and talked about how they experienced racism on the set of Nickelodeon. People were even bringing up how there was a scene from one of them raggedy TV shows they put on for these kids to watch where they had one of the little black boys covered in peanut butter for the dogs to lick off of. Once again, he should really feel ashamed of himself, knowing that this man don't even mess with black people like that, but was the person that he first ran to try and smooth over things, make himself feel good. So he doesn't like black people, but he's okay with them enough to use them to make him look better, while also ruining their image for being goofy enough to give him a platform to spew his ridiculousness to begin with. I don't know if Dan Schneider paid him to do this, if he's holding something over this man's head, or if he's just that shallow and out of touch, that disrespectful to himself and to the victims. I don't know which one it is, but clearly it has to be one of the three. Now, the person people have been bringing up lately is Amanda Bynes. Obviously, this girl has gone through something, this young woman has gone through something that broke her. And it's really sad that we watched this happen in real time, and the people who were responsible did not get held accountable for what happened to her. A lot of people have been keeping her in their prayers, hoping that everything's going to be all right with her. Although they have been pointing it out that this is where it all started. It all started with Nickelodeon. The stuff that they probably had this girl doing behind closed doors that nobody knows about to this day. The stuff that we allegedly know about that could have happened behind closed doors. And no one can say that Dan Schneider wasn't in the middle of it somewhere, because this very instance right here, people have been bringing this up as well. Why in the world was this grown behind Dan Schneider in a jacuzzi with an underage Amanda Bynes? Why? What in the world kind of a script, dialogue, whatever you want to call it, would call for that? Would require something like that? A grown man in a jacuzzi with a child, essentially. Now, people can say, well, they have their clothes on. Your point is, he's still a grown behind man in the jacuzzi with a child. Ain't no telling what was going on. We can't even see his hands. In the video, there's a snippet from this, whatever show it was, him, he raised his hand for a second to wave at the camera, But he put his hands back down underneath the water. Couldn't nobody see under that water. Anything could have been happening. He could have been doing anything to her, sitting right there, and nobody would have knew about it. The fact that the people down there allowed that to happen says a lot about these people. Like I said before in the previous video, they did not care about the safety of those children. They didn't care about what was going to happen to them. They already knew what was going to happen to them. And that's another thing people were pointing out. Dan Schneider had the audacity to fix his raggedy mouth to make it seem like, oh, we should start putting therapists on the sets so people can understand, like, they're a child on a TV show set, whatever, what might happen. And they were saying, excuse me, sir, what do you mean what might happen? Are you insinuating that things happen to children on sets and they should just have a therapist there to just tell them to get over it? Or this is going to happen if you want to be famous? Because that's what it sounded like to me too. They also pointed out Boogie, once again, interviewing him, one of his former employees, instead of somebody who actually didn't have any bias connected to him, couldn't be bought by him, or somebody who wasn't going to make the interview about him and his pity party and instead would make it about the children that he screwed over. This one person said on YouTube, he wants to put on a show of holding himself accountable without letting go of any control he has over the narrative, which once again proves he's really not sorry. He's just trying to give some kind of explanation because he's caught now. It's all catching up with him now, trying to make himself look like he's sorry, but still try to control how people think about him, smooth it over, like I said, make it look like he's not such a bad guy, when he is a bad guy. He's a horrible guy. And people also brought up how he basically tried to put all the blame on the parents. Like I've said before, I'm a firm believer in a lot of these parents, they gave their children away to these people. Maybe a few of them didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know what was going on and they didn't want it. But most of them gave their children to these people. He tried to put all the blame on the parents. And everybody was saying, sir, you were the one who created this environment. You were the one who sanctioned all of this. You co-signed it all. You made these kids and their parents feel like if they said anything, one, they wouldn't be heard. Two, they'd be ostracized, or you'd sick other people on them, or they'd lose their jobs. Like I said before, the man dodged accountability left and right and did his absolute best, put on his best performance, especially, like I said, with that fake cry, to take the negative publicity off of him, to take the negativity off of him. But I'm so glad people are not here for it. They're not going for it. They see what's going on. They're acknowledging it. They're pointing it out. Now, speaking of some black people being the shoulder for abusers and predators to cry on. So the mother of Kyle and his brother, I forgot what the young man's name is, Kyle Massey, the mother of these two individuals, came out and showed her support to Dan Schneider after all this information came out. And her main excuse was because Dan Schneider gave her sons jobs. First of all, we've said this again. This man did not even like black people like that. He gave each one of her sons a 15 minutes worth of shine. Quite literally, almost. And that's all that they got. Once again, for the obvious reasons. She really low-key tried to discredit what these young people were saying about him by saying, oh, well, he helped my sons. He gave my sons roles. He didn't touch my sons. Just because he didn't touch your sons or do something inappropriate with them does not mean he didn't go on to do something of the such to other people. It's like the Oprah situation all over again. People have been comparing it to that. Her going to vouch for people, predators, who have hurt people in heinous ways and saying, oh, well, I've never known him to do that. He's never done that around me. And, he's such a great person, posed up in all these pictures with Weinstein. Y'all know who I'm talking about. And people were trying to say, well, Oprah, just because he didn't mess with you or screw you over doesn't mean he didn't screw these other women over. And to try and make it seem like your experiences speak for his character only is wrong. To try and make it seem like these other women didn't go through this because you didn't go through it with him is wrong. Two things can be true at one time. He can be nice to you, even if it's just a facade, while being heinous to other people behind closed doors. And once again, this goes back to him not even really being bothered with black people. He didn't mess with her sons because he didn't want to mess with her sons. And it's sad that we even have to talk about it like that. Like he literally messed with the kids that he had a preference for, so to speak. And it's sad, once again, and sick that we even have to talk about it like that, but we got to call it out for what it is. People were also calling out the fact that this woman is out here taking Dan Schneider's side, essentially siding with a predator, and her sons were out here allegedly doing some of the same things that he was involved in, allegedly messing with minors, putting their hands on people, allegedly. Anyways, we're going to shift gears a little bit and go to the guy by the name of Devon Werkheiser. And if that's not how to pronounce his name, that's going to be his name today. Now, this young man was the main character of that show by the name of Ned's Declassified, whatever it's called. I'm not about to sit up here and act like I remember the full name of that show because that was a long time ago. And once again, that shows you how irrelevant that show really was. Didn't get that many views. I guess he takes pride in it because at least he had a little show. But whenever Drake Bell came out and he said what had happened to him, this man had the audacity with his co-host, I forgot what the young lady's name was, they had the audacity to make a live stream where they were basically joking and making light of what he said had happened to him. Once again, we have already established there is nothing funny about what happened to him. There's nothing funny about assault. There's nothing funny about an adult mishandling a child. Nothing that that man said was funny. It was very heinous, it's very messed up, and he's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. He even responded saying, really, I thought we were like friends at least. We worked together. Why would you say something like that? And had the audacity to try to backtrack during the live stream, but it really just wasn't, like I said, an authentic apology. Now, the young lady by the name of Alexa Nicholas, which I told y'all I was going to talk more about her later on, she called them out. Now, Drake Bell, relabeled them Ned's Declassless, which I thought was very appropriate because that was very classless for them to do that and disrespectful. But Alexa also called them out and said that they were wrong for doing that because they said we were all supposed to be friends. We all worked down there together. We all experienced stuff. If you didn't experience something, then we're happy that you weren't also traumatized, but be respectful of everybody else. It's wrong to joke about something that you didn't experience. They're already going through hell because the wounds are being reopened, which she talked about before. She talked about in one of her YouTube videos. People have to relive this trauma every time they talk about it. They got to deal with the public harassing them. And we talked about this during the P. Diddy issue. The public is going to harass them. The fans of these people are going to harass them. The people who don't want to believe that their favorite show was a breeding ground for this kind of predatory behavior, they don't want to believe it. So they're like, oh, you weren't going through anything. The shame, the guilt that they're feeling that they should not have to bear because of what happened to them, they had no control over. And on top of that, the fact that they got to listen to people who they thought were their friends, joke about them, deny what happened to them, and side with the people who did it. That's what she said hurt the most. Seeing who they thought were their friends side with the people that hurt them because they didn't see them doing it, because they didn't see anybody get hurt. They didn't know that particular person as somebody who would hurt somebody. Once again, that's another reason why people don't come out, because it would really hurt deep and cause some people to self-destruct. If they do all this, they come out, they go to their friends and family who they thought they could trust, who would listen to them, and then they deny their experience and even worse, go and support the person who hurt them. As a hurtful thing to go through on top of everything else. Like I said before, Alexa has really been calling people out. She has been keeping her foot on their necks, and I'm here for it. Somebody has to at some point in time. Once again, she's had her moments where she was involved in that same stuff. She worked down there with Nickelodeon. She went through stuff like a lot of the people who were down there did. She has the right to speak out about it, and she has the right to confront other people who are mishandling and making it harder for the other people who were hurt. And I also like how I get that they were victimized, but she has not labeled herself a victim. She labeled herself a survivor. And I think that's very powerful to say. That's very powerful rhetoric, if you will. That's a very powerful mindset to have despite all of what has happened to her and to everybody else. She has become a real advocate for people like her, sharing her own experiences. Like I said, she was like, y'all need to apologize. She was really talking to, the cast members, like I said, of Ned's Declassless. That's what I'm going to always remember them by now. She was saying, y'all owe him an apology. And they claim that, he did go and apologize to Drake. But I feel like if you're going to publicly laugh at somebody and mock their pain, you need to publicly apologize. You need to go on your platform, the same platform that you went on to do that, and say, you know what, I was wrong for what I did. I didn't experience that. He did, and it was wrong for me to make light of his situation. I don't believe in private apologies after you publicly went out your way to disrespect somebody, humiliate somebody, or mock them. One last thing I wanted to mention and bring up and draw some attention to. Once again, all these people you see coming out of the woodwork to try and discredit these people who are coming out about these big people, these big names, these people at the top, these people that are behind these networks. A lot of these people are showing y'all their allegiance, if you will. Yes, they're being shallow. Yes, they're being heinous. Yes, they're being lacking in empathy, but they're also showing you their allegiance. Some of these people are not going to come out about people like Dan Schneider because they've gotten stuff from these people. They've gotten their little shows. They've gotten their little paychecks. They're showing you that they're not going to go against the system because they don't want the consequences of going against the system. They don't care about these other people who are out here going through this stuff. They're not going to stand by them because they want to continue to be in good with these people. They want to protect their reputations so that they can continue doing what they're doing in the industry. I honestly believe some of these people at the top, the moment stuff starts coming out about them, the moment dirt starts coming out about them, their dirty laundry gets aired out, they tell some people, they go to some people, they call them up and they say, hey, we've done XYZ for you. Now we need you to do something for me. Go and, harass these people, talk about them, mock them for coming out. I honestly believe that they do that to get back at these people for coming out about them. This is the industry that we're talking about after all. And once again, we need to take notes on who is saying what. Who's the one that's showing their allegiance to these abusers and predators? Who's coming out and mocking these people whenever they're saying what happened to them? You need to pay attention and react accordingly. Now, I know this was a lot, to take in, but this is something that we need to talk about. This is something we really need to have a genuine and long and thought out, deep conversation about. Y'all let me know what y'all thinking, how y'all feel about all of this down in the comments below respectfully. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Y'all all have a very blessed, beautiful, and safe day.